Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening. It's time!
This is Faisal Khan for Lights Out, proudly in association with Kimura Sports. And this is podcast 3 of the all-new Lights Out MMA podcast. With me, delighted to be joined by the founder of Kimura Sports, Javid. And I'm also delighted and privileged to be joined by professional MMA fighter signed by MTK MMA, Mohamad Osseili. Brothers, welcome to podcast number 3 of the Lights Out MMA podcast. How's it going?
Thank you, bro. Thank you for having me on the broadcast, bro.
No, pleasure's all ours. Pleasure's all ours. Javid, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all good, my brother.
Good.
Just,
good.
A bit gas from watching the UFC last night. A bit disappointed because I'm an Overeem fan here.
Mm-hmm.
I've been watching him since Pride and all the other UFC fights as well. So a bit disappointed at the moment, but all good apart from that.
Well, hopefully your disappointment won't last long because we've got an exciting show to talk about for
the sport,
next
bro.
Saturday night. It's all part of the business. We can't always be happy with what we see. Before we get started, just wanted to remind the viewers out there, if they haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like and follow on all the social media platforms. We'll be sharing Kimura Sports' social medias in the description, as well as Mohamad Osseili. Get behind him, follow his career as he builds himself up to hopefully become the next big thing in MMA. And before we obviously move on into the podcast, I'm going to be sharing a link as well with a person that I know well enough to say that he delivers some amazing boxing photographs and whatever you're into, whether it's boxing, whether it's football or movies. We've just purchased some amazing photographs that we'll be using for our background in future podcasts once the studio room is up and ready. We're obviously having to stick to Zoom for the time being due to the lockdown, but yeah, there's some great photographs to be brought for some brilliant prices as well, and make sure you check out the links in the description as well. Let's move on and let's talk about the upcoming event this coming Saturday night, UFC 258, the main event for the welterweight championship. Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. There's a lot going into this fight. I want to just start off with Mohamad, if you don't mind, Javid. What do you make of this Saturday night's coming main event between Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns? How excited are you for the fight?
I am very excited for this fight, bro. It's really an amazing fight to be having on the event and to watch for all the fans of the MMA. As I know, it's they was training together before, so they know each other very well. And they will be stepping in the cage. They know each other and the game plan and how they are fighting. So it will be very smart fight. It will be amazing fight to be watching. Two of the best welterweight will be fighting each other for the belt. That's amazing event to watch. This next Saturday.
Javid, you're the one that once upon a time come to me and said Lights Out needs MMA, so take it away, bro. Why have we got to be excited for Saturday night's big fight, especially with two guys that know each other very, very well, as Mohamad just mentioned?
In the past, whenever it's been two guys from the same camp fight each other, and this is something that's actually happened quite frequently on MMA, is it's always been a war from straight up. With MMA, there's always a bit of a feel-up process in round 1 and round 2 as well. But when it's guys fighting from the same camp, there is no feel-up process. They just go straight into it. And we saw that in the Kamaru Usman versus what's his name again? Kobe fight as well. They're both were from the same gym as well beforehand. But then when they fought straight away, it was fireworks, straight up, stand up war, and they were just going into it. But I reckon it's going to be the same as well with Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert. I reckon it's just going to be a straight up war from the start. There ain't going to be no feel-up process or anything like that. So now what's interesting is is this going to be a stand-up war like how Kamaru Usman fought against Kobe, or is it going to be Usman pushing Gilbert against the fence and tiring him out and trying to wrestle him like how he did against Masvidal? So that will be an interesting concept. I think it will be the former. I reckon it will just be a straight-up striking battle, to be honest. But then that's when it becomes dangerous because you see Gilbert, he has really good hands and he's really good at lowering his level and then throwing his overhands right. And I reckon that's like, a bit of a something that's kind of worrying for Kamaru Usman, because he has a tendency to be straight up and like leave his chin up. So there's like a lot of like, different plays here that's going to happen. So it will be a really, really interesting fight.
That's obviously the beauty, as you guys have both mentioned. They both trained with each other. They both studied each other for many, many years. And we all know in combat sports, styles make fights. Now, let's obviously just look back previously to their previous performances. You obviously mentioned the Colby Covington fight. There was obviously the win against Tyrone Woodley to become the welterweight champion, and obviously his last fight against Masvidal. I just want to ask, Mohamad, what have you made of Kamaru Usman's last few performances, especially those last 3 fights, and of course that war with Colby Covington? Have you been convinced to, make you think that he's going to do enough this coming Saturday night to beat Gilbert Burns?
I think like Kamaru, because he's the champ now, so he's not going to put himself in a dangerous position. He's very smart. He want the opponent to come to him. He don't run after him. You know what I mean? He's the champ. The opponent needs the belt, so he needs to do more and more and more. Kamaru Usman, he has a good stand-up. He has a good grappling. He is ready to fight whatever the fight is going. You know what I mean? And he has the belt. You are the opponent. You are going to the cage. You want that belt, so you need to do the effort. You need to come and chase him. You need to knock him out. You need to take him grappling. You need to do something to win the fight. With Tyron Woodley, he did enough to get that belt. Now it's time to defend that belt. So he's a very smart guy, you know what I mean? And he's doing what he's doing just to win. It's about winning at the end of the day. Like nothing matter. The winning is matter, you know what I mean?
The
if
fight
you like
gets,
it, you don't like it, he's still winning in the cage.
The fight
he's
gets
still the champ.
The fight gets like a lot of recognition because they're both former teammates and they both know each other so well, and that's when obviously I'm pretty sure in the back of their minds, one of them might think to maybe sort of change to a sort of different style going into this fight. But if you're Gilbert Burns in this fight on Saturday night, Javid, what game plan do you take in this fight? Do you look to change anything up, and do you expect Kamaru Usman to come in with the sort of same approach as he does in all of his other previous fights?
See, this is what I think might happen. I think Kamaru Usman's going to come out and he's going to try to grapple with Gilbert Burns, try and tire out his arms, try and take out the power from his punches and stuff. So I reckon that's what Kamaru Usman's going to do at the start. Like maybe even throw in some foot stomps. Might even see a foot stomp TKO. Who knows, man? But yeah, I reckon that's what Kamaru Usman's going to do. But if I was Gilbert, what I would try to do is just pressure Kamaru Usman against the cage. Like he is known for having quite good boxing, but his defense is not exactly the best. And we saw that against Colby. For the first 2 rounds, Colby was getting the better of him in the exchanges. He was landing the more crisper shots, and that's because Kamaru Usman's stand-up is not as defined and it's not as technical. So if I was Gilbert, what I'll do first 2 rounds is just go out there and try to pressure Usman and throw those haymakers. Try to throw everything that you can at him, throw the kitchen sink at him. Because then, in the later rounds, I think that's where Usman, he gets better and he'll be able to out grapple you if he wants to, and he can out strike you as well. And one thing going into this fight is people need to know is Usman has a very good chin, and we saw that against his Colby fights. As I said, he was getting those crisp punches landed on him, but it wasn't phasing him or anything like that. To beat him, I think you have to land some mad haymakers. Because there's no other way you can beat him, because I think he has one of the best wrestlings as well, one of the best grapplings. And we saw that, play out against Tyron Woodley. He was ragdolling Tyron Woodley, and Tyron Woodley is a 2-division, wrestling champion as well. And he's really good stand-up. But he was ragdolling Woodley around however he wanted. He was slamming him, he was taking him, sweeping him, everything. So if I was
Mohamad mentioned that he's doing the minimum, which is winning, and that's obviously all that matters is winning. Now, when I look back to the Masvidal fight and I look back to the Colby Covington fight, it's as you said, he grows into the fight the later it goes on. And some people could see that as a good thing. Some people could see that as a negative thing because, they just might come across one opponent that just might, have a better engine than him, or might be able to take that, that high pace, fast start from start to finish. Now, I do believe that at times it does pay off, but I also do believe that you're risking it if you're, relying on a slow start and you're, banking on finishing it strong at the end. And of course, with this being his third title defense, and, Gilbert Burns has achieved a lot, in MMA. And of course, he's yet to win a world title in the UFC. Mohamad, how important is it that he doesn't sort of like do what he's done in the last few fights, which is relax in the early stages of the round and tries to win as many of the early rounds as possible? Because 34 years old, Gilbert Burns knows that if he doesn't win on Saturday night, it might be a very, very long time before he does get another shot at the world title.
I think they know each other very well, so both of them will be stepping to that inside cage, and they both having the good game plan to get that win. So it will be a very exciting fight, very smart fight. But I think Kamaru Usman this time is not going to pick up the pace step by step. He need to go and put him to the cage and put the pressure and get him tired, then take him down, then grapple with him. He has a big muscle mass. He can't his stamina, it will be not giving to him 5 rounds, you know what I mean? He's powerful guy. So if Kamaru Usman, he will stand there and take his shots. It need one clean shot, and if he take it, he will go to sleep. I don't think he will do this in this fight. I think he will put Tyron Woodley, what he did with Tyron Woodley. He take him for the cage. He work on his body a lot. He take his stamina out, and then he finish him. I think this fight will go like that because he can't stand in front a powerful guy like that and just take his shots. It's different than the last few fights. He can't do that right now.
It's 40 fights between the both of them, and in total of 13 knockouts. I don't think we'll get a knockout on Saturday night. I think it does go the distance, and I think we do get a points decision. But Javid, again, if you're banking on someone to get a knockout on Saturday night, you've obviously, them both very well. I remember when we were, building up for this podcast, you mentioned how it's going to be a toe-to-toe fight in the transcript. What's the outcome on Saturday night? I mean, how do you see the fight ending? Do you see it going to a points decision, or perhaps a submission, or maybe even a knockout?
To be honest, I'll say 70% of me, actually maybe that 75% of me is predicting a decision win for Kamaru Usman. But I do still think it's going to be a war. I don't think there will be a knockout, but I think it will be a stand-up war and some grappling in the first couple of rounds as well. But as you said, none of these guys are knockout specialists. They do both have a lot of power, but I'm not predicting a knockout, to be honest.
Question I want to pose to both of you is what awaits the winner? Because obviously we understand Kamaru, if he does retain the title, where does he go from here? And of course, Gilbert Burns being 34 years old, looking at the bookies' odds, they have Gilbert Burns as, the underdog going into this fight. And which, to be honest with all of you, it's not a bad thing going into a fight as an underdog. So what's next for the winner, and obviously what happens for the loser?
I think Gilbert is taking his last chance to fight for the title, and he will go to do whatever he need to do to get it. That's the biggest chance in front, a biggest name. So if he took this title, he will be doing something very big for himself, and he would be loving to end his career having that belt on his chest finally. So I think he will go there and fight for his life to take it, because if he didn't take it, there's no other chance for him to take it again. You know what I mean? Kamaru Usman, he can come back. He is still having time. I think he's 33 years old. He's still having a lot of time of fighting, and he's physically very strong and stamina very high. He's a different level. He's a different level of fighters, high class fighter.
What about you, Javid? What would you say is the next step for the winner of this fight? What do you want to see him do next? Do you see potentially moving up a division, or do you think they'd want to clean up the rest of the division?
So if Gilbert wins, of course he's going to stay in the division and he's going to continue fighting, because he's more of a natural welterweight, to be honest. Even though he doesn't have the biggest size and stuff, I'd say he's quite suited for welterweight. So if he wins, I reckon he'll definitely stay in there. He'll still continue to defend his title against number 2, number 3 and stuff. I'm sure Chimaev getting in there as well, some other top contenders as well, fighting Gilbert Burns for that title if he was to win. But if Kamaru wins, like, I'm not entirely sure what will be left for him in welterweight division. Like, it is a stacked division, but he's defended it a few times. Maybe he will defend it, like, another round or another 2-3 times maybe, and then like move up. Because I would actually like to see Kamaru Usman in like middleweight, because he is quite a really big welterweight. So I think he'll do quite well in middleweight as well. It'll be interesting to see him in there as well.
Well, either way, the fight's been postponed twice in the past. It's definitely happening on Saturday night. Fingers crossed. They come through their COVID tests and nothing else happens, i.e. in terms of an injury, and we do get to see the fight, because it is an exciting fight. And if it's anything like UFC 257, which was full of surprises, we're in for a very good night of MMA action. Final predictions, guys. What happens on Saturday night? I'm going to go for a Kamaru Usman points decision win. I think it'll be just like his other 3 title defenses. I think he starts off slow, and I think he finishes off strong and does enough to take the W and retain the belt. And then perhaps, I'm with you, Javid. I think he does move up to that middleweight division. Mohammed, what happens on Saturday night? Who wins and how?
I will give it for Kamaru Usman for sure. He's a different level of fighter. He's very smart. He knows how to win. For sure, he will take it. But I think he will be winning in the 3rd or 4th round.
The Nigerian nightmare. The Nigerian nightmare. Javid, what's your thoughts Saturday night? Who wins and how?
Yeah, same with you, to be honest. Kamaru Usman points decision, to be honest. I just don't see beating him in any way, grappling, stand up. I think Kamaru Usman's a smart fighter, as Mohammed has said. He's actually a very smart fighter, because if you look at his Kobe fights, he actually decides what he wants to do for each of his fights. For the Kobe fight, he was actually out there to put a statement. He wanted to actually beat up Kobe and basically mess him up and stuff. But against the Masvidal fight, he was actually smart. He was like, you know what? I have nothing to prove. I can just go out there, just hold him against the cage, tire him out, win exchanges. There's no point of me put my chin out there, going into any risk or anything like that against Masvidal. And he can do that. He's that type of fighter who can he has those options open to him. So again, he is a very smart fighter, and he can play each fight as he wants to. And that's exactly what I think is going to happen against the Gilbert fight as well. I reckon first round and a half, 2 rounds maybe, pressure him against the cage, tire out Gilbert's arms, take him down, and then unload on him in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th as well, and mix that up. Because in the first 2 rounds, if he's there, just pushing him against the cage, taking him down and stuff, Gilbert is always going to be worried about that takedown, and his hands are going to kind of naturally just lower as well, and that will give Usman the chance to land some good combos as well.
Well, let's see what happens on Saturday night. I mean, definitely a lot going into this fight. As I mentioned, for me, the biggest plus point is both are former teammates and both know each other very well. So could see a chess match, or as you predicted, we could see an all-out war. Let's move on. We're going to mix it up a bit with talking about MMA and boxing. And the reason we're doing that is because we need to talk about former MMA star Ben Askren, who on April 17th will step foot in a boxing ring to take on YouTuber, or fellow YouTuber, I should call him, Jake Paul. Now, in 2017, we kind of had something similar, except it was a YouTuber fighting. It wasn't a YouTuber fighting a former MMA star. It was, for me, the best boxer of all time, Floyd Mayweather, taking on Conor McGregor. Now, guys, what chances do you give Ben Askren stepping into the boxing ring and beating Jake Paul? Because, I mean...
0.
Oh... You don't think Ben Askren will beat Jake Paul? Why is that, Mohammed?
Bro, I don't know what he's going to do there. That's really distractful for the big boxing sports, it's money fight only. I don't know. What's that, bro?
I mean, when you look at
for
it,
me,
right?
I'm not going to watch this fight. It's bullshit fight. It's number one bullshit fight.
A lot of people would agree with you, Mohammed. It is a load of BS, but the bottom line is it's selling at the moment, and Jake Paul is causing a lot of noise, calling out Floyd Mayweather, calling out the notorious Conor McGregor. He's managed to get a fight with Ben Askren. He beats Nate Robinson on the Mike Tyson versus on Mike Tyson's last fight when he fought Roy Jones Jr. He makes a lot of noise and he gets names in the ring.
Yeah, because he's crazy. He has the money. He's having fun. He has a lot of viewers on YouTube. He can do whatever he wants. You have the money. You have the fans. You are famous.
Would you say it's a bad move, though?
But who from these names, the biggest name, will fight him? When he is going to fight someone, he fight a wrestler. He never like show any striking in the cage.
Can
And
I
he's
just say
going to
that
fight the wrestler.
I genuinely do believe that Conor McGregor is going to rise onto debate, and I do genuinely believe Conor McGregor will fight him in a boxing match because, as you mentioned, Mohammed, he does have a lot of money.
$50 is not bad to
Yes,
fight him, bro.
well, he does have a lot. Of, he does have a lot. He does have a huge following on social media platform, and he has an amazing following on his YouTube channel, and he's getting people in the ring. But why is Ben Askren one of these faces that is jumping in the ring? Like, what does Ben Askren have to prove? You know, how does it benefit him? Yeah, he gets a bit of a payday out of it, but surely he wants to keep, you know, whatever sort of reputation he's gained from the UFC, the MMA. What do you see happening here, Javid? I mean, do you see another win for Jake Paul, or is Ben Askren gonna go in there and just wipe the floor with him? Because a lot of people, you know, we all take part on social media, we all go on Twitter daily, we all on Instagram. A lot of people are hoping that Ben Askren wipes the floor with Jake Paul.
Yeah. Well, firstly, I just want to say this is massive disrespect to fighters, to professional fighters. Because you have people like Mohammed here, yeah. He spent his entire life training, fighting and stuff, and like never getting like, you know, a lot of recognition from the start. Like, you know, I'm sure he's had to go through a lot of like, you know, trials and tribulations to get to the point where he is now. And the fact that someone who has no, like, you know, who hasn't gone through that kind of stage, who hasn't gone like, you know, through any of that kind of trouble and just gets fast tracked into like, you know, into a fight, professional fight, it just disrespect to the whole sport, and it's like disrespect to like, you know, the whole culture of it as well. So I don't like this kind of stuff. Fair enough, it's for entertainment, but this is boxing, this is mixed martial arts. It's not just entertainment. This is like, you know, life. This is like, you know, it goes beyond that, because like the amount of sacrifices like, you know, fighters have to make at the beginning of the career as they go on as well. And the fact that other people can just like, you know, fast track that is not fair. I don't think it's fair, and I think it like kind of diminishes like, you know, the
100%.
the nature of the sport as well. So like, I don't really like this kind of stuff. Fair enough, like Conor McGregor versus like, you know, Mayweather, both of them are fighters and stuff, and like, you know, they come together. Fair enough, two YouTubers want to fight together, fair enough. But the fact that like, you know, like Ben Askren versus a YouTuber, it doesn't mix well with me. I don't really like it.
And he said it, like, he said it, I want to get the MMA fighters to the ring and have fun with them and knock them out. So it shows, I think he gave him a good offer for Ben Askren, like a good money, and they need the money now. It's like good social media things, you know. And he get him for the ring, he will knock him out, he have fun of him, and he will enjoy this moment and call out like Mayweather and Conor McGregor and keep going, and this shit he's doing all the time on the social media.
He makes a lot of noise.
But
He
no
makes
one
a lot
from
of
this
noise.
bigger name, he will fight him, you know. Like, no one need it.
Mohammed, sorry, Javid mentioned, obviously, you know, you yourself know how tough it is, you know, being a professional MMA star. And we are, over the last few years, there's been a lot more talk about boxing and the MMA sort of coming together. We've seen it a few years ago with Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor. Now, obviously, we're going to see it with Ben Askren fighting and he's not even a professional full-time boxer, and a YouTuber, and Jake Paul. I mean, would it be something you would consider? Because I can't sit here and say I'm a full-time MMA athlete. I don't know what it's like to live that training camp life, you know, and I don't think personally I'd be able to handle it, because to have that mindset to be a full MMA star, you need to be mentally and physically well prepared for it. Is it something you've ever considered, perhaps maybe one day going into the boxing world?
Yeah, for sure. It's my dream to be fighting in the boxing arena one day. It's one of my dreams, because as a sport of boxing, it's something like, for me, it's the magic. He has a lot of magic to train, to do, like, to be in that cage. It's a dream for me. Like, I hopefully will be like, one day I will be fighting in the boxing in Las Vegas, and we will do it.
Ambitious. That's what we love. That's what we love to hear. What chance does Ben Askren have of beating Jake Paul come April 17th?
0.
Javid, your response to
I'm
that?
not sure. Have you guys seen like the memes and the, like, you know, funny videos of like
And
Ben
you know
Askren
it, bro.
stand up and
And you
Have
know
you
it,
seen,
like,
like,
he has 0 chance.
Well,
When he takes a heavy hand, he will be scared even to move.
yeah.
Let's wait and
you know,
see.
He is a wrestler, bro. He is a wrestler. Like, what he is going to do in the boxing arena, in the boxing cage, you know, with a crazy guy and heavy hands like this guy.
Let's wait and see.
That's
Let's
true,
wait
you
and
know.
see. Let's
You
wait
know,
and see.
Jake Paul, like, fair enough, he's a YouTuber and stuff, but I think I heard on the Joe Rogan podcast that Jake Paul actually was wrestler back in like his college days and like high school days as well. So I think he does have like a bit of an athletic nature to him, and like seeing him on the pad, seeing him on his like previous fights, he does have skill. Like I'm not going to just like dismiss him just because he's a YouTuber. He does actually have some skill. Like it's not enough to be like on the level of even amateur, let alone professional level. Like, but he does have like decent boxing for someone who's just like trying to start up with it. With that said, Ben Askren's boxing is 0-2. He literally has no boxing skills at all. So even someone, unfortunately, like Jake Paul might be able to like beat him, unless I don't know, like Ben Askren is like,
or even be exchanging like punches. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
actually, that's a good point. That's a good point, because you see, Ben Askren, he's a fighter at the end of the day. He's used to being in fights and being in those exchanges as well. Does that mean like going into the fight against Jake Paul, he will have that advantage of actually being a fighter and being in scraps? Is there a chance like that would actually help him and mean like he gets the win?
I look at it from a different point of view, and I have to obviously, the only example I could use of boxer fighting an MMA star is obviously what we saw in 2017, and Conor McGregor for me after 2 rounds looked completely gassed. I mean, they're two total different sports. I won't ever allow someone to say they're the same. They're not, man. They're two total different sports.
They are not the same for sure.
They're not the same. No way. Like, I mean, I understand. For me, MMA is more brutal. It's more brutalizing. There's loads more ways to knock out fighters in an octagon. But boxing and the MMA are two total different sports. Now, I mean, Jake Paul, like him or love him or hate him, he's quite dedicated to his boxing right now. We all seen what he did against Nate Robinson as well, and he trains a lot as well. And again, I would relate back to the fact that when I watched McGregor versus Mayweather, McGregor was gone after 2 rounds. There was no power in his punches, and I believe that was due to the fact that 1, he's not really much of a striker, and 2, it was because he was completely gassed. So, I mean, for Ben Askren to beat Jake Paul, he's going to have to do it nice and early, because the longer it goes on, I think it's just going to be one-sided. And yeah, I know you don't really want to talk about like it's a great fight and everyone's going to stay up late to watch, but it is getting a lot of noise, and it is sort of like bringing both the sports together. But in terms of the sports itself, MMA and boxing, they're two total different sports. And I don't want it to be a full-time thing. I didn't enjoy McGregor versus Mayweather because it just didn't fit right with me. It's just, they're completely two different sports. So listen, again, it's getting a lot of publicity behind it. It's going to be, for some people, it's going to be good to see. But I'm just going to say this now. I hope Conor McGregor does get in the ring, and I hope he wipes the floor with Jake Paul, because the disrespect that's been coming out of Jake Paul towards, Conor McGregor is going to go down as one of the greatest of all time in UFC. And Floyd Mayweather, for me, is the greatest of all time. He's the best fighter that's, been inside a boxing ring. But let's wait and see. Let's wait and see what happens. Anything could happen in a boxing ring. Final topic of today. Does Khabib return? Now, he said before UFC 257, I need to see something exciting. I need to see someone to give me a reason to get back into the octagon. Michael Chandler stopped Dan Hooker in sensational fashion, and Dustin Poirier made light work of Conor McGregor. Is that not enough to bring Khabib back into the ring? Into the octagon?
What he's waiting for exactly?
I think he needs a challenge.
If you want to come back, bro, come back. What you're waiting? You get the best offer now to fight whatever you want, to call out whatever you want. But I don't know what he's waiting for to come back, to be honest.
Javid, when you look at it, right, I mean, I've said this, and I'm not going to obviously, be, I'm not going to be biased or anything, but I do believe, and this is no disrespect to anyone in that division right now, I believe Khabib is here and the rest are just down there. I believe Khabib is another level right now. And I just do believe that Khabib is looking at the current division and he's probably thinking, nah, if I'm coming back, if I'm going to come back for one last hurrah, one last payday, I need to see someone who's going to really give me a challenge, because I've not seen Khabib been challenged. Does anyone in this current division give him that challenge he wants?
I don't think no one really does. No, I think he's on a different level, as you say, man. Because he's actually got a good game plan against every single one of these fighters. And there's no one that's been able to, put him off his game plan. He's always stuck to it, and he's always been able to, do it to however he wants. He, dictates whichever fight he wants. And, the fact that, there is no one who can, really stop him. fair enough. Okay, you've got Marco Chandler. He's got good wrestling and stuff, and he's got good power in his hands. But again, Khabib will take him down and like keep him there and like, you know, keep him like he's underwater, and then he'll be like all the others, like, you know, look like they're drowning after like, you know, 2-3 rounds. There's no one really out there who can like, you know, really challenge him. And the thing from Khabib's perspective is like, he wants to, if there's a fight that's going to bring him back, it's got to be like someone who's like, you know, who has a chance to like beat him, who can do something different. And like, you know, who can stop his takedown defense, which I don't think anyone can, or who can knock him out, which I don't really think anyone can, because like he can easily always take them down. Because if we look at who's the best knockout specialist at the moment now in that division, you've got Charles Olivier, and maybe like say someone like Dustin Poirier. He's already choked out Dustin Poirier. Charles Olivier, he can easily take him down and keep him down there for as long as he wants. Marco Chandler, he can do that exactly the same. There's even a chance that like
he
he
can
can
do
stand
that
up
with
and stay
everyone,
there.
bro.
Exactly.
He's
There's no one
insane.
out there
He's
who-
insane. Like he's a high level grappler. Like if he take you down, you can't even get up. You can't even try to get up.
When
So
Mohammed,
keep
if
the
you were
damage, and
fighting against
if he
Khabib,
speak with you, like if bro, like he play with your mind, you know, like he keep you downstairs and he starts speaking with you, broke you mentally, physically, like it's a nightmare for everyone.
David,
But
I want
think,
you. I
like,
want you to finish that question. I know what question you're going to ask. I want you to
Yeah.
finish it. Go ahead.
Mohammed, you're in the ring and against you is Khabib staring at you against on the other side of the cage. What do you do to beat Khabib?
for me to beat Khabib,
Yeah.
like
What
to
would
keep
you
him
do?
away from me, like that. That's the only thing it up after he take me down, Khabib, to be honest. He's another different level of grappler. He's not like any grappler. Like that's his game. That's his world. He born to
What
be
if you
down.
spend years doing jiu-jitsu and just trying to figure out, do you think having really good jiu-jitsu can be like beat Khabib and help you to get out of his ground game?
For sure, there's nothing impossible.
Yeah.
Everything is possible.
Nothing's
Even I
impossible in the
think,
fight
like,
game.
all of the fighters now, they go inside in the cage. They are broken mentally before they lose from
100%.
him.
Mm.
Like they are scared from him. Like if you
Yeah.
get Gaston, like what's his name?
Just Gaethje, yeah.
That's Gaethje. Like if you watch his fight, like he never was like that. He was like always lower his body, like, and he's scared from his shoot. Like he didn't even do like 10% from himself because he's here losing before he fight.
Yeah. 100%.
Like I think he needs someone like he's not scared from him, not scared to be down with him.
Let's
not
talk.
scared
Let's
from his shoot,
let's.
you know. I
what's
think the right deal for him now to fight Conor McGregor for the rematch again. He's the only guy he was like giving him a hard time, to be honest. I think.
Yeah, true.
He was not scared from his shoot and his ground all the time.
If Khabib does come back in the UFC, and you know if he is to get back into the octagon again, who's the best opponent for him? Who really does give him that test? Who do we think? Well, Khabib back in the octagon, this guy's really going to push him. Break it down for me, guys. I'm going to be.
I think rematch with Conor McGregor.
I think personally,
Conor
Oliveira
McGregor is the only one.
I'd say Oliveira or Poirier for me. I think, you know what, a lot of people would say it'd be exactly the same as the first fight, but I think Poirier, from how he's risen in the sport, I think he deserves that shot. And you know, to be honest with you, it doesn't really need to give Conor McGregor a rematch anytime soon. You got yourself in a good position. You know, you've been the more active fighter as of late. Take the chance, take the opportunity. No harm in losing to a fighter against Khabib. And if you do manage to get the fight with Khabib and you beat him, you know, you cement a legacy in the sport, because many have tried and many have not even got close to doing it. And which is why I've said it before and I'll say it again. Khabib is up there. The rest of the division it's not, I'm not knocking anyone because like I said, I'm not a professional MMA athlete, but I do believe Khabib for me is the greatest of all time in the MMA.
Let me play devil's advocate here. So what can Dustin Poirier do differently from his last fight if he was to fight Khabib again?
Well, you know what I've said I always say this, right? You know how much of a good fighter he is if he goes into a second fight or a third fight and you've seen what he's learned from the previous fight. So I'll use it in a boxing example. I always said to a lot of people, don't judge Deontay Wilder until you see that second fight with Tyson Fury. Look what happened in the second fight. Learned nothing. He was just worse off and he took an absolute battering. So that proved Deontay Wilder is a good puncher. He's got ferocious power. but boxing-wise, he's not that good. Now, a lot of people in the second fight between Poirier and McGregor thought McGregor get rid of him just like he did in the first fight, but Poirier learned from the first fight. And as, you know, Mickey mentioned, you know, in last week's podcast, it was the basics. It was, you know, calf kicks. That's what done McGregor in. That's what led to the knockout. So I do believe, you know, you got to give Poirier some credit. He learned from the first fight. And if he goes into the second fight against Khabib, he'll definitely learn from it. But I do think Khabib it'll be the same outcome, just probably a lot more later on into the fight. But you never know. It's combat sports. Anything can happen.
But the question is, he is going to be ready mentally and physically to face him again on the ground after he suffered the last fight with him. The last fight, if you watch Poirier's face, he was like, where's the fight will be done? Like, please,
it does play a massive part. It does mentally and physically.
Corner, like he told his coach, I can't take him off of me. Like I can't stand up.
Well, guys, we're gonna have to. We're gonna
before you win here, bro.
Before
you win in the cage, you have to be winning here. You know what I mean?
We're going to have to leave it there. That's all we've got time for on today's podcast. I just want to thank Mohamad for joining us. Mohamad will definitely be keeping an eye on the rest of your career. And of course, Javid representing Kimura Sports, always a privilege having you on. Make sure you follow these guys on the social medias. We'll be sharing their links in the description. Make sure you check out all of our social media platforms and don't forget to hit that subscribe button, a slight push. Javid, a pleasure as always. And Mohamad, good luck for your career. We'll be following you. Enjoy UFC 258 and thank you very much for joining the podcast. And to the viewers out there, thank you for listening to UFC Podcast 258 and Podcast 3 of the Lights Out MMA Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening.